All right, guys, this is our last lesson in exponent rules. So basically, we're just learning one exponent rule today, and that is that the rule for fractional exponents. Okay, so a square root can be written as an exponent in fraction form. So if I want to write the square root of x in exponential form, we would write that as x to the 1/2 power. Okay, you can write any type of radical as an exponent. Exponential form is what that's called. So actually, let me rewrite this. If I wanted to write the cube root of x in exponential form, that would be equal to x to the 1/3 power. The fourth root of x would be equivalent to x to the 1/4 power. Okay, so this denominator value is equal to the type of radical that you are describing. Okay, you can also have a number other than 1 on the top of your fraction. And if that is the case, then this top number here is going to behave just like a regular power. So this is still going to be like a regular exponent, regular power on the top. And then this bottom number is just going to be the radical, like I explained in the previous slide. So if I said what is a to the 1/2 power, that is the same thing as saying the square root of a to the first power, or you could write it as the square root of a with the first power on the outside, or of course anything to the first power is just that same thing, so the square root of a. Okay, what about b to the 3/2 power? So this would be b to the 3rd, and then the bottom number of the fraction tells that it's a square root. So it would be the square root of b to the 3rd, or you could write it as the square root of b to the 3rd power. These two things mean the same thing mathematically. You can write it either way. Okay, two more like that. So this one, x to the 4/3 power. Remember, the top number is still like the regular exponent. So this would be like x to the 4th power. And then the bottom number tells the type of radical. So this being a 3 means this would be a cube root. Or you could say that it is the cube root of x with the 4th power on the outside. Again, these two things are equal to each other mathematically. You can write it in either way. The last one is already written as a radical, so what's being asked of us here is to write it with a fractional exponent. So remember that the type of radical always goes in the denominator of the exponent you're writing, and then the power, whatever is raising to a power, is the top number. So this would be equal to y to the 2/3 power. Okay, I only have 2 examples here, and then my plan is to find a couple of delta math problems to do for you in a separate video. So simplify 16 to the 3/4 power 2 different ways. So what we want to do is we want to write it one way. And one way we could write this is as 16 to the 3rd power. And then the bottom number tells the type of radical, so it'd be like the 4th root of that. And it says to simplify. So we would start on the inside and we would figure out what 16 times itself 3 times is equal to, which is 4,096. Then we can take the 4th root of 4,096. Which is 8. Okay, so that's one way to simplify. We're going to try it a different way. To do it a different way, what you would do is what we did on the last slide, where we would just take the radical, put that in parentheses, and then put the power on the outside. And that just means we're going to kind of work from the inside out. So I'm going to start with what's the 4th root of 16? That is equal to 2. And 2 to the 3rd power is equal to 8. So we did solve the problem in 2 different methods, but got the same result. All right, last question set right here. What is 25 to the negative 3/2 power? Okay, so you need to start with the fact that this is a negative exponent. And remember that negative exponents have to be rewritten as fractions in the denominator. Okay, next you are going to write the fractional exponent as a radical. So the 3 on top is the power. So this would be like 25 to the 3rd power. And we are doing a square root because the denominator is just a 2. And then you can simplify this further. I know the 3 is on the inside of the radical, but we could actually raise to the 3rd power last. Remember that you can do the square root like this with the power on the outside. That means the exact same thing. I am going to do it this way when I do the mental math step, because taking the square root and then raising the answer to the 3rd power is a lot easier than doing 25 to the 3rd power and then square rooting, because I'm trying to do it in my head. Okay, so the square root of 25 is 5. 5 to the 3rd power is 125. So 1 over 125 would be your answer. B, this one's a decimal exponent. We have not talked about what decimal exponents mean because every decimal can be written as a fraction. So what's happening here is I want you to rewrite 2.5 as a fraction, and this may take you a couple steps, but the first thing that most people would think of is maybe 2.5 is the same as 2.5. But what we're really looking for is we're looking for an improper fraction. So what you do, remember, is you would do, side note, you would do multiply the bottom number times the whole number and add 1, and that would give you 5, and then keep the denominator the same. So 5/2 is the same as 2.5. Then we can move forward with our rewriting process. So we can write it as the square root of 9 to the 5th, or we can write it as the square root of 9 raised to the 5th power, and then solve. This would be equal to 3 to the 5th power. 3 to the 5th power is 3 times 3 times 3, 5 times. And the answer to that would be 243. Okay, one quick thing before you start working on delta math. The phrase exponential form means no radicals and no fractions in your answer. Okay, so I don't want any radicals or fractions in my answer. Basically, I want everything to look like an exponent. So exponential form, you will have everything written as exponents. Not exponential form, often called simplify, would be where you do rewrite everything as a radical and as an exponent. So make sure that you're looking at your directions carefully on your delta math assignment to see what's asked of you. Oh, I guess I have a couple more examples. Okay, a couple more, and then we will move to delta math. So write the cube root of a to the 5th, b to the 3rd over c squared in exponential form. So this is where we're going to change any radical or any fraction back to an exponent. So I'm going to begin with the cube root, because I know that the cube root is the same as raising something to the 1/3 power. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and apply the power rule to everything inside the parentheses. And that's meaning, that means I'm going to multiply my exponents. So 5 times 1/3 is 5/3. 3 times 1/3 is 1. And then c would be 2 times 1/3, which is 2/3. Exponential form also means no fractions. So anywhere that you have a fraction, you're going to actually rewrite that as a negative exponent. So the c is in the denominator, which means we could rewrite it as c to the negative 2/3 power. And so this would be your answer in exponential form. Okay, this one says simplify, so we're going to get rid of any negative exponents or any fractional exponents. What I'm actually going to do first, guys, is I'm going to rewrite the inside of this radical. I'm going to rewrite it here as 4 to the 1/3 power. The reason I'm choosing to do that is because I have a fraction on the outside that's a power. And that would be helpful if this down here was written as a power 2, because then I can just use power rule. I think I'm also going to do one more thing, and I'm going to rewrite this as a negative exponent. That way I'm not looking at the fraction part of it, because essentially what I want to do is I want to multiply these powers together, and I just think it would be a little easier to do this way. Now when I go through and I do power rule, that means I'm going to multiply, and maybe I'll go over here to do that, negative 1/3 times negative 3/2. So two negatives make a positive, and then top times top, bottom times bottom, looks like it's going to equal a half. So this is going to be equivalent to 4 to the 1/2 power. And then we're actually going to keep going further because simplifying can continue. 4 to the 1/2 power, remember, is the same as the square root of 4. And so the solution here, completely simplified, would be equal to 2. All right, homework is on Delta Math. Don't pay attention to this. Homework's on Delta Math this week for 3.3. So you're going to go ahead and get started on that. And then I'm going to find a few examples from Delta Math, and I'm going to do them for you in another video.